Wait, do I? Oh, no. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about OpenSCAD, and specifically we're going to be talking about OpenSCAD as it relates to Fox.Build Makerspace here in St. Charles. So if you're local to this area, you know that we have 3D printers and laser cutters and that kind of thing. And so what we're going to teach you today is how to make designs that you can print or cut on our equipment using this thing called OpenSCAD. So one thing I'll mention is that this class assumes you have experience in at least one programming language. It doesn't matter which one, but OpenSCAD is not your traditional point and click kind of CAD software. So we are going to use terminology that's going to be familiar to programmers. If you're not familiar with programming, we're going to have another class probably later next month on a more traditional point and click kind of CAD. So stay put there. Yeah, so what is OpenSCAD? OpenSCAD is a CAD program that lets you do 3D designs, and rather than being point and click, it looks more like the screenshot you have here, where you're actually typing out commands. And that might seem a little bit surprising at first, but you can actually do some really cool things when you do CAD as a programming exercise rather than an interactive thing. For instance, I've got this QR code right here. So if you wanted to make keychains that have a QR code on them, and you have thousands of different QR codes, that's something you could potentially do. The thing we showed you in the first slide, somebody actually made it so that you could 3D print different keys, where you would put the what's it called, Timmer? The tooth height. What do they? There's like a term for that. I forget the term. But anyways, you can set those parameters in OpenSCAD by just typing it and not have to redraw your entire model. And so you could potentially cut a key using it. There's also a framework for nuts and bolts. So if you need very specific types of screws or things that you're going to be threading onto machinery that just you can't find at the hardware store, you could potentially create those models by entering the parameters into OpenSCAD. Yeah, the same could be said for pipe fittings. So and flexible couplings. If you've seen a CNC machine before, you know they have flexible couplings. So you could change the parameters there. And then peristaltic pump was a cool one. This one, not really parametric, but it's just kind of a fun one. I like to show people. Somebody decided to make a like little mini circus theme park thing in OpenSCAD. So it's definitely a powerful tool. You shouldn't feel limited, because there are a lot of ways you can use that. So, all right. So yeah, like I said, it's a non-interactive, and the way it works is basically you've got objects and transformations, and you combine objects with transformations. The example I'll give you there, you see that funnel. That's where I created basically a cylinder with two different base heights that creates a cone, and then I cut into that cone using some transformations that we're going to learn later in this class. So yeah, I'll pop my head into the stream here, see if we have any questions. No, looks like no questions so far, so I'll keep going. How's everything looking over there? Everything good? All right, cool. Then let's keep rolling. So yeah, the biggest thing is why you would want to use OpenSCAD is because you have a design that has parameters that need to change often. It's also easy to do text, but there's some other things too, like because it's just a programming language, people have actually created online, browser-based OpenSCAD environments. So even though I use the desktop version, you could certainly do this in a browser. And you can also do things like build a bash script that pumps out an OpenSCAD design. I've done this using the command line version of OpenSCAD. I've had things that can generate 3D models from within a program. And worth mentioning that it supports 3D and 2D modeling. So you can do laser cutting and 3D printing. I actually just learned something new from the last time we taught this class. I learned about the projection function. We were talking about it towards the end of class last time. I figured it out today. Yeah, and so the disadvantages, it's a little bit harder to learn, right? You can't just drag things with your mouse. It has a syntax. It assumes that you're a computer programmer of some sort, and I promise you, we will forget semicolons today when I'm doing the live coding. I always forget the things. And then I'm going to be using VS Code when I write, because I just feel like, I'll show you here, it has a code editor in the app, but it's just kind of limited. So I would rather be over here, actually writing it in a more traditional code editor. So there is a VS Code plugin, and you can actually set it up so that when you save this file in your editor and you go over here, it'll re-render automatically. So yeah, and then there are some derivative works. One of our members recommended this one called Implicit CAD, which I don't think it's like a fork of OpenSCAD. I think it is its own project, but it's very similar. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I misunderstood, but that is my understanding. It's like a web-based, very similar to OpenSCAD kind of thing. So yeah, any questions so far? All right. Yeah, so let's get started here. I'm going to take a sip of water, actually. So this is our first design. This is what OpenSCAD looks like. I'm just going to cover a couple things before I paste this into my editor. As you can see here, it has a C-like syntax, and I mentioned that there's solids and transformations. So circle, that's two-dimensional. Sphere is its three-dimensional counterpart. But then there's also this thing with these curly braces you notice here. This is called a translate, where you're moving it -10 units on the z-axis. So it's basically taking this circle that has a radius of 10, and then we're moving it -10 units. And that'll make a lot more sense if I just paste it in here. So let's do that. And I'm going to clean up the formatting there a little bit. So, okay, so I just saved the file. Let me make that a little bit bigger, though. Be easier to read. Yeah, so I just saved that, and then I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to open test.scad. So there you go, right? We created a circle of radius 10, and we translated it downwards 10 units. It's worth noting that OpenSCAD does not have native units. So if you want something to be in millimeters, you're just always going to use millimeters, right? There's no setting toggle to put it to inches or anything like that. And then you can see here that for the sphere, there's a parameter called R. OpenSCAD does have named parameters. I believe you can just do this also, and it'll have the same result. And yeah, it does. So that's our first, object. And somebody asked in the chat, is OpenSCAD free? What programming language? Great question. So yeah, the question that just came in on the chat is OpenSCAD free, and what programming language does it use? So it is free. It's free and open source. And since I have it right here, let's find out what license it is. I believe it's GPL v2. Yeah, so okay, it's licensed under the GPL v2 license. So basically, it's free as in freedom. And then this programming language you see here, it's a custom programming language. There are versions of OpenSCAD that will work using JavaScript instead, where they've translated all of the functions to a more traditional programming language. But the default OpenSCAD that you're going to find in the wild is its own programming language that you're going to have to learn. And on that note, I'm going to mention that they publish an official cheat sheet that you can find on Google. Very helpful because we're not going to cover the entirety of the language today, but there is a good cheat sheet, and this is an officially published document by the creators. Oh, and yeah, and there's a link to it in the app. Thank you. Yeah, so that's our first OpenSCAD design. Again, it's solid shapes and transformations. Daniel, do we have any other questions coming in? Great. All right, and great question. Thanks for asking. Okay, so now we're going to go a little bit more advanced. We're going to start doing color. I'm going to paste this into my editor. And you're going to start seeing that the syntax is pretty consistent, right? Let me zoom out a little bit. So we already learned how to do circles. We already learned how to do spheres. But now we've got this new thing called color. And this is going to be the first time. Oh, no, actually it's not. It's just that I redact that previous comment that I was about to start. It just seems that my formatter formats it a little bit differently than what I would have expected. So it's the same thing, right? You have a translate, and if you install the VS Code plugin, you'll get these nice hover help comments, which are pretty useful. So most of these transformations will have child elements, where when you put an object inside of the curly braces that you see here, this transformation will affect all of the inner elements. So everything inside of those curly braces is going to be translated -10 on the z-axis. Likewise, with this color transformation, everything that's inside those curly braces is going to turn green. So let's go ahead and let's save this and let's see how it looks. So no surprises here, right? It's green.